I wanted to talk a little bit about what the benefits of a visual arts education are and why I think so, and also particularly emphasize contemporary art as a powerful archive, a dynamic archive that continues. This is an example of some contemporary art that is on a repository that I hope many of you will be able to access. It's called Art 21, and it's been produced by a group in New York City, and they have maybe over 100 artists, contemporary living artists, who have talked in their own words in 10 or 15-minute segments from their studios about their practice. It's all available online. And what that does is make contemporary art very available to people who are working in schools. So you no longer have to go to New York and pad up and down the pavement chasing galleries, or go to New Delhi, or go to any of the places in India. You can begin to get in on that. So wanted to just tell you a little bit about myself, although Manjari did a very good job, so I can probably skip it. That, you know, basically, I really began with a messy mind, the kind of mind that was that mind wanderer, I think, kind of richness. And after almost 20 years of teaching with that kind of a mind, in general classroom, I taught math and science and social studies and reading and language arts and, you know, all of that. I never taught art. But I always taught through the arts, not because I had read anybody's research that said that was the best way, but because I couldn't figure out any other way to do it, to keep the kids engaged and myself interested. So that's just the way I did it. But then when I went to the Graduate School of Education at Harvard, that was when we took my mind-wandering mind and focused it, retrained it, so that I could make hard-edged differentiations between concepts. It was painful, that transition, very painful, lots of tears in statistics classes. But the outcome in the end is that I have returned to the messiness of practice at Mass Art, and, as the saying goes, seen it for the first time. So the richness of being in a place where making is the central activity and where that kind of mind wanderer is the norm and not the exception has been quite wonderful. So I'm speaking across those perspectives as someone who is a hard-edged thinker and someone who is an associative, soft-edged thinker. Are you guys getting like a whine? Kind of nasty. Can we do anything about that? How's that? Can you still hear me? All right. Well, just let me know about that kind of stuff, because that can drive you nuts. Okay. Basically in this talk, I want to quickly answer one big question, which is why art? And I'm not going to read that to you, so I hope you can read it for yourself. But then I would like to spend most of the time focusing on the second big question, which is why contemporary art? And you'll see this slide a couple of times, so if you don't get to see it all and write it down or anything else that you want to do with it, it'll come back and you'll get another shot at it. And this is the first of many slides where I will have images of contemporary art, and I'm not going to go into them much. There are huge stories behind them. They're not meant to stand on their own. They're associative networks, and you can get in on them and have deep conversations. But I'm just going to flash them by you and hope that you don't mind too much, because I only have 20 minutes. Okay. So why art? You know, basically my answer has become because we need to develop artistic minds. That I see the disciplines which are human inventions, and they're not very old, as ways that human beings have created sets of lenses that we hopefully have a little bag of glasses that we can take out and put on our mathematics glasses and then see the world through that lens, or our history lens, or our science lenses, whatever the lenses are. And arts is one of those lenses that we really need, because we need to have the chance to view the world through an artistic mind. And through research, this was starting in 2001, funded by the Getty Foundation, and then later the US Department of Education. We created the Studio Thinking Network, or Studio Thinking Framework. And the Studio Thinking Framework is, as Manjari mentioned, now in its second edition. And though we did it in visual art, we went to visual arts classrooms where the teachers were artists and they were teaching art to art students. It has been used over the past 10 or so years by people in all art forms, dance, drama, music. We were careful not to make the claim that it was good for all of those, but other people told us that it was good for all of those, because basically once we had created this framework, we were able to give it to practitioners and say, what's this good for? And then they used it for things and have told us about it. So a lot of that is reported in the second edition of the book. It's also been useful in non-arts disciplines and domains, and that is one of the biggest exciting features of this work. So one of the things before I introduce the 8 studio habits is to say that the studio habits are not merely skill-based. A lot of times, I think we believe that what we're teaching is a set of skills. And of course, we are teaching a set of skills. But if we only teach skills and we don't teach why you'd use them or where to use them, then they remain inert. And you might as well not even have them. If you're not going to use them, they're a little bit pointless. So skill, very important. Nobody's saying skill doesn't matter. But you also need to help students to develop, and this takes a different kind of nurturing, the inclination or the drive or the passion to actually use those skills, and then the alertness or the awareness to know when those skills are useful, when and where. If you have that little triad interacting, then you've got something that can actually function and make things happen. And unless we can activate our skill and knowledge so that it can actually do something for us, then it's not worth very much. So that's why we talk about teaching dispositions. And the studio habits, there are 8 of them that we, after many hours and years of arguing, came up with these categories as ways to describe the categories that an artistic mind works in. One of them is develop craft. It's just technique, and it has to do with materials and tools and conventions. Another one, and these are in alphabetical order, so develop craft is in no way primary. It is not the first, the most important, you have to learn that first. It is in no way meant that way. Engage and persist, the ability to find problems of fascination or to find the fascination in problems, because that's what causes you to sustain attention over a long period of time, the kind of long period of time that it takes to actually develop real, meaningful ideas and understanding. Envisioning is the practice of seeing that in your head, which you cannot see in front of with your eyes or perceive in other ways. Envisioning is mental manipulation of form, of idea, of time. Express is the idea of saying in the symbol system of the art form, by which we mean gesture in dance, harmony or timbre in music, pattern, form, shape, texture, line, all the elements and principles in visual art. again, tonality and gesture in drama, saying it's about meaning. So basically, art is about idea, it's about meaning, and this expression of that is in particular symbol systems that are specific to the art forms. Observe means looking more closely than ordinary looking, giving looking time, taking different perspectives, challenging your thinking in a variety of different ways through your perceptions. It can be easily changed to listening, it can be changed to feeling, it's experiential, gathering of perceptions. Reflect has two parts. One is question and explain, and that is sort of the counterpart to express. Express looks at meaning in the symbol system of the art form, but reflect uses words. And even though Isadora Duncan, a great dancer, said, if I could say it, I wouldn't have to dance it, we do have to talk about art and its meaning and what it means. So this translation process across the meaning expressed in color and gesture to the meaning possible to express in words is a very important function of the artistic mind. This also has to do with making judgments, and it's very sophisticated making judgments in the visual arts or in any of the arts, because you're always operating at the edge of what is known. You're always operating at the edge of the new. And so we don't have standards and criteria, yet there are standards and criteria. So again, you're going back and forth between that which has rules and that which has no rules, and where the rules are living in our stomachs, and you just know when the piece is finished or when the piece is right, or that this is a piece that you're responding to. And these things change over time. Things that were bad become good. Things that were good become bad. It happens. Stretch and explore is my favorite habit. That's the one that has to do with error and play. It has to do with a playful approach, exploration, kind of a whatever approach. And it's really important in schools because it turns error on its head. It says error is not something to be ashamed of, to avoid, or that proves that you're dumb and shows it to everyone else. Instead, error is inevitable. Error is necessary, and you must learn to use error as an opportunity to bring in new ideas and to diagnose things that you're trying to figure out how to do. And the last one, and again, it's not last except that alphabetically it's last, is understand art worlds or understand art communities. We've talked about it variously. It has both of those parts, looking at understanding the works that other people have made across time and space and are making now, and also understanding how artists work in communities. So these are the 8 studio habits. Remember that all of them have an aspect of skill, all of them have an aspect of inclination, and all of them have an aspect of alertness. So there are many, many components of an artistic mind, and they do not operate in isolation. They operate in interaction and in conjunction. So the creation of this sophisticated and facile artistic mind is the kind of lens that we want students to walk away from their education with. So remember that I mentioned 2 points, the first being why art, and that's the basic reason that I've given you, is to create an artistic mind. And then the second is that I wanted to go into contemporary art. I have 5 minutes left? No kidding. Well, let's muscle right along here. Here are the basic arguments for a contemporary art in the curriculum. I'm not going to read these to you, but all I am suggesting here is that contemporary art is the place where artists claim all of the knowledge and processes that are used in every other domain. And they say, these are ours, and we can do with them what we wish. And therefore, it becomes a sort of a railroad station hub where the trains can come through and get turned around. So it can be a center to every other object in the curriculum. I went recently to the Biennale in Venice for the first time and saw the works of different countries around the world and different artists around the world. And I wanted to just sort of flash a bunch of these up at you so that you could see them and begin to understand what I see as the richness of contemporary art. I've put them up with some quotations from Jerome Bruner, who's about 93 now, and a grandfather of the philosophies that we use at Project Zero. So the blue part, if I go too fast, is what you can read quickly, and the white part is the whole quotation. This is Sarah Z's work. Turns out that she was a student at the school where I taught for 11 years. I'm very excited. She was the U.S. exhibition at the U.S. Pavilion this year. And this, I think, shows, when you're looking at work that has structure like this, it's clear that you can begin to think about what it is we're trying to learn. This is just from a classroom from Louise Bourgeois. And I think, the idea of having quotations from artists up so that you can begin to see artistic mind at work is a wonderful tool in the classroom. This is from my colleague John Crow, who came to India with me, right back there. And here Bruner is talking about the destructive nature of high-stakes testing. And John has been making fun of that with some of his artworks. Because what we really need to do is move from this notion of that which can be tested to that kind of learning that is actually thinking and can be put to use. This is the one about error, as I was mentioning, and we really need to help students to subside fear around error because it will block them and shut them down. I've been impressed by the use of metaphor throughout Srishti and in the talks at the oral history lectures over the past week. And I think that metaphor is a very, very powerful and fundamental form of thinking that is utilized in all the art forms and can be exploited. The idea that mathematics somehow doesn't comply with this is something that Bruner refutes by saying it's not a set of rules, mathematics. It's actually tools for coping with the drama of the unknown. How beautiful. Don't you wish you'd been taught math that way? And this is the idea of this, that art will help us to condense and transform what we encounter and to begin to see the deeper general structure. So far from being ornament or just decorative, it is the deep underlying structure of patterns, of making sense in the brain that happens. Playfulness is in no way a joke. Just because children do it doesn't mean that we should try to stop them or that we should stop ourselves as adults. Playfulness is indeed serious business. It's what allows the material for analysis, and unless you're going back and forth, you're going to lose out. This is just some playfulness here. Japanese animator who was having all these little planes fly around an apartment. And these, I'm going to run out of time very quickly, so I'm just going to show you some images from the Biennale with some of my ideas about what contemporary art can help us do. Revealing meaning as central. Considering the kinds of concepts that artists address and tying them to your own personal fascinations. This is more about the personal. My colleague John Crow got a haircut the other day with one of the Srishti interim courses, and this was an example at the Biennale of a Nigerian woman who got so interested in Nigerian hairstyles that she became a photographer. This is weaving with glass tubes, broadening your appreciation for the whole world. This was a beautiful exhibition from Finland where you walked in, and as there was a little contraption I could breathe into, and my CO2 would be directed to a set of tree leaves, which would then respirate and produce oxygen. And the oxygen coming out of the stomata was mic'd, so the trees sang in response to my breathing into this. It was amazing. This is, you can model thinking and acting ethically. There are many activist artists. This was about the genocide in the Central Republic of the Congo. With all of these screens, you couldn't see them all at once, so you got that sense of confusion, and the idea of dealing with difficult topics like genocides and racism very, very profoundly available in the arts. This is an artist who was working on schools as jails. And, you know, the idea of the arts as being a place where we can begin to give kids their reason back and allow them to begin to question the things that they are presented with on a regular basis. You can look at social and collaborative tools through the arts. This was two pianists playing Ravel's Concerto for the Left Hand, and you could see where the notation differed in interpretation. So lots of great ideas. John Crow's Rules as another poke at assessment. So here's the last couple of slides. That basically contemporary art reveals and addresses the issues that the global community confronts, so then we can work on them with different disciplinary tools. And they offer entry points to personal and collective inquiry, and it's easily accessible, especially now with the web. So those are my two main points. Just one more time, in case you hadn't gotten them. And I loved this quotation from Banksy. A lot of people never use their initiative because no one ever told them to. And this is just my little belief, which is that an education without the arts is an impoverished education. And depriving art to students in our schools guarantees the development of an impoverished society. Thank you.